Let me tell you something about coming home after too long. It's like walking into a dream someone else kept living after you left. The streets look the same, but the air smells wrong. People look through you like they remember, but wish they didn't. That's Ashbrook for you, a town built on logging, whiskey, and secrets. When Daniel Price drove past the cracked "Welcome to Ashbrook" sign that October morning, the fog was so thick it looked alive. His daughter Lily sat in the passenger seat, earbuds in, staring out the window at the blurred trees. She was 15, pale, withdrawn. Her mother's death had carved something permanent behind her eyes. "Almost there," Daniel said, more to fill the silence than anything. Lily didn't answer. The radio hummed static, then picked up a faint voice. An old preacheress sermon about sin and the devil walking like a black hound seeking whom he may devour. Daniel turned it off. The Price family house sat at the edge of town where Main Street bled into forest. Paint peeling, porch sagging, the kind of house that creaked just to remind you it was still holding up. He hadn't seen it in 20 years, not since the night he left, right after Halloween '99, the year his brother went missing. Inside, everything smelled of old pine and dust. There were still boots by the door. A coffee mug with "Number 1 Dad" faded on the side. That first night, Daniel unpacked boxes while Lily explored upstairs. Around 9, she came down holding something, a small wooden carving of a dog, jet black. "Found it in the attic," she said. Daniel froze. His father had carved those, a dozen of them, each one identical. He used to leave them out on Halloween, said it kept the hollow quiet. "Probably just something your grandpa made," Daniel said. "Put it back where you found it," but she didn't. The next morning, Daniel met Sheriff Tom Grady at the diner. They'd been friends once, back when beer and bonfires were all that mattered. Tom looked older, heavier, but his eyes were still sharp. "Didn't think you'd ever come back," Tom said. "Ashbrook's got long memory. Just here to sell the house, tie up loose ends." Tom nodded slowly. "You staying through Halloween? Didn't plan to?" Tom gave a dry laugh. "Good, don't." Daniel frowned. "You still telling ghost stories to scare tourists?" Tom leaned in. "Not stories. The Hollow's been acting up again. Dogs go missing, livestock found torn open. And 2 nights ago, old Mrs. Fenn's boy saw it." "Saw what?" "The black dog. Big as a man, eyes like fire." Daniel shook his head. Jesus, Tom." "Laugh all you want," Tom said quietly. "But every time someone sees that thing, somebody dies before Halloween's over. Always has." That night, Lily woke screaming. Daniel ran to her room. She was sitting up, drenched in sweat. "There was a dog," she whispered, "in the hallway. It was watching me." Daniel checked every room. Nothing but creaking boards and cold air. He tucked her back in, told her it was just a nightmare. But as he turned to leave, she said something that made him stop cold, said my name. The next morning, Daniel found muddy paw prints on the porch. Large ones, too large. And next to them, another black wooden dog, sitting perfectly upright by the door. He hadn't carved it. The morning after the paw prints appeared, the fog never lifted. Daniel stood on the porch with his coffee, staring at the carved dog. It sat on the top step like it was guarding the house. The detail chilled him, the curve of the muzzle, the faint scratches in the wood like fur, looked identical to the one Lily found in the attic. Only this one was damp, as if it had been outside all night. He bent down, touched it. The wood was cold. Too cold. When he turned it over, he saw something carved into the base, a date, October 31st, 1979, the year his brother was born. Inside, Lily was at the table, poking at a bowl of cereal gone soggy. She looked pale, tired. Dark circles had bloomed beneath her eyes. "Did you sleep at all?" he asked. She shook her head. He kept talking. Daniel froze. "Who?" "It's the dog." She said it like she was talking about a person, calm, certain. "And what did it say?" he asked. Her spoon clinked against the bowl. It said it was waiting for you. By afternoon, Daniel drove out to the edge of town to see Reverend Holloway. The old man had baptized him, married his parents, buried his brother. The church looked smaller now, half the pews covered in white sheets, hymnals gathering dust. The Reverend was sitting near the altar, a thin shape wrapped in a cardigan, his breath rattling like paper. "Daniel Price," he said, squinting, "back from the dead." Daniel tried to smile. You could say that. Holloway's eyes drifted to the window. The trees beyond the glass were shifting, restless. "You've seen it, haven't you?" he whispered. Daniel blinked. "Seen what?" The dog Daniel hesitated. "My daughter says she has. I found one of my father's carvings outside the house." Holloway closed his eyes. Was muttering something. Not a prayer. Not quite English. When he looked up again, his voice was barely a whisper. "Your father made those as protection," he thought. "Carving the devil's likeness would keep it out. That doesn't sound like him." "You didn't know him near the end," the Reverend said. "After your brother vanished, he started hearing things. Said the woods were whispering. Said the hollow was calling names again." Daniel swallowed. Calling whose names? Everyone it ever took. That night, the wind picked up. Daniel sat at the kitchen table with a beer, trying to make sense of the old man's words. Outside, branches scraped against the siding like fingers. The house creaked, settling, but the rhythm wasn't right. It was too deliberate. And then he heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. At the front door. He froze. The sound came again. 3 slow knocks. "Lily," he called out. "You awake?" No answer. He went to the door, careful not to make the floorboards squeak. Peered through the peephole. Nothing. Just fog and porch light. But when he opened the door, the cold hit him like a slap. And there was another wooden dog. This one was smaller. Burned black at the edges. He looked down the street, empty. No sound except the wind in the trees. When he turned back inside, Lily was standing at the top of the stairs. Her nightgown fluttered slightly, though there was no breeze. "Dad," she whispered, "you shouldn't open it." The next morning, he called Sheriff Tom Grady again. "Someone's screwing with me," Daniel said. "They're leaving carvings." "At my door, on my porch," Grady cut him off. "It's not someone, Danny. It's it." Daniel almost laughed, but the sound died in his throat. "Jesus. Tom, you don't actually believe I've lived here my whole damn life. Every 20 years it starts again. The hollow wakes up, the dog shows itself, and people start dying. First animals, then folks. Always ends the same way." "What way?" Grady hesitated. "With a trade?" Later that day, Daniel drove to the old Price property line, the path that led into Hunter's Hollow. He hadn't been there since he was 17. The trees looked taller, tighter together, air was thick, almost wet. He found the remains of the old fence, the one his father built to keep out hunters. The boards were gray and soft with rot. On one of them, scratched deep into the wood, was a word: Price. and beneath it, another line carved newer, rougher. Payment due. Daniel stepped back, heart hammering. Then the woods moved. Not the wind. Something heavier. A shape behind the trees, too black to be shadow. It took him a second to realize it was a dog. Huge. Shoulders as high as his chest. Its eyes burned faint red, like coals. It didn't growl, didn't move closer, just watched him. And when Daniel finally took a step back, it tilted its head, almost curious, before fading back into the trees like smoke. That night, he dreamed of his brother. They were boys again, sitting by the bonfire behind the house, roasting marshmallows while their father whittled a shape out of dark wood. The smell of sap and smoke mixed in the air. His brother Nate was laughing. "He's making another one," he whispered. "What a dog." Their father looked up then, eyes hollow, face gray in the firelight. "It's not a dog," he said. "What is it?" Daniel asked. "A promise?" Daniel woke gasping. His shirt was damp, his heart pounding like a drum. The clock read 3:07 a.m., and then from downstairs came the sound of scratching. Slow, deliberate, wood against wood, right beneath his bedroom floor. He grabbed the flashlight, crept down the stairs. The noise stopped when he reached the kitchen. He shone the light toward the front door. There was a new carving on the inside of it, fresh, deep grooves in the wood. A dog's face, open mouth, teeth, and below it, Lily. He ran upstairs. She was gone. Her window was open, a curtain fluttering. Outside, paw prints in the frost led straight toward the woods. He didn't think. He grabbed his jacket, his flashlight, and followed. The forest swallowed him whole. The fog was thicker here, alive somehow, pulsing between the trees. He could hear her ahead, faint, calling his name. "Dad, Daddy." He ran faster, branches slashing his arms, breath burning. When he burst into a clearing, he froze. There, in the moonlight, stood Lily, barefoot, staring into the dark, and in front of her, the black dog. It was enormous up close, fur slick and matted, eyes glowing faint orange. It turned its head slowly toward Daniel. Lily didn't move. She was whispering something too soft to catch. He took a step forward. Get away from her. The dog's mouth opened. The sound that came out wasn't a growl. It was a voice. Low, familiar. "Hello, Danny." His brother's voice. For a second, Daniel couldn't move. The voice froze him in place, not because it was loud, but because it wasn't supposed to exist. That tone, that rhythm. The little break between hello and Danny, exactly how Nate used to say it when they were kids, and Daniel was lost in his own world, too serious for games. The black dog stood motionless, its breath fogging the cold air in long, even bursts. The fire glow in its eyes dimmed and flared, like the last coals of a dying fire. "Danny," it said again. The mouth didn't quite move right. The sound came from somewhere behind it, somewhere deep. "Where's Lily?" Daniel croaked, his voice trembling. "She's here," said the voice. "We always come too late." The fog shifted, parting just enough for Daniel to see something behind the dog movement. Pale shapes flickering between trees. At first he thought they were fireflies. Then one stepped forward. A child, barefoot, eyes hollow, skin too pale like it had been under the earth too long. Lily. But when the girl turned, it wasn't her face. It was another. A face Daniel hadn't seen in decades. It was Nate. Or what was left of him. Daniel stumbled backward, his flashlight shaking in his hand. "You're dead," he whispered. I buried you. You buried part of me, Nate's voice said, still coming from the dog, though its mouth was now closed tight. The rest stayed here. Father promised I'd never leave. The fog coiled around Daniel's ankles like smoke. This isn't real, he said. You're not real. You still think this place cares what's real? The laugh that followed wasn't human. It was layered. Nate's voice tangled with something deeper, older, like a rumble under the ground. The dog stepped aside, revealing a shape in the fog, an old tree, its trunk split down the middle. Inside the split was darkness so deep it looked like another world. Come home, Danny, said the voice. He's waiting. And then Lily's scream, high, sharp. From beyond the tree, Daniel ran. The world blurred. Branches tore at his face. Roots caught his boots. He didn't care. He followed the scream until it broke off mid-breath. The woods swallowed the echo whole. When he burst into another clearing, the fog thinned just enough to see a structure. A small wooden cabin half collapsed. He knew it instantly. The old Price hunting shack? His father used to bring them here on weekends, before everything went bad, before Nate vanished. The door was open. Inside, candlelight flickered. Lily? He stepped in. The air was stale, thick with rot and something coppery beneath blood. On the table sat a carving knife and a half-finished wooden dog. But this one wasn't like the others. Its eyes were hollow, and in its chest was a hollowed cavity. Something pulsed faintly inside, a heart, and beside it, a child's shoe. Daniel's knees went weak. Oh God, no. He turned toward the back of the shack. That's when he saw her, Lily, standing perfectly still, facing the corner like a doll placed on display. Sweetheart, he whispered, moving closer. It's me. It's Dad. She didn't turn. When he touched her shoulder, her head tilted just slightly, not toward him, but toward the wall. On the wall were dozens of drawings, crayon and charcoal, some torn, some burned at the edges. Each one showed the same thing, a black dog, a man with a knife, and a child with hollow eyes. Daniel staggered back, bile rising in his throat. Dad, Lily said softly, still not looking at him. Said, it's our turn. He froze. Who? Her hand lifted and pointed toward the corner. At first, Daniel thought it was shadow, a darker patch on the old timber. But then it moved. Something peeled itself out of the wood. A man-shaped thing, skin gray and thin as paper, eyes empty pits. The smell of rot hit Daniel like a slap. It smiled, not with lips, with the crack splitting its face. Oh, Danny. Daniel staggered backward. You're not him? Your father made a promise, it said. One life every 40 years. To keep the hollow quiet. To keep the town safe. Its head twitched, bones creaking like dry branches. You gave me your brother. Now it's your turn. Over my dead body. The thing tilted its head. It was always the way. Daniel grabbed Lily and ran. The door slammed behind them, though he hadn't touched it. The woods outside groaned, trees bending inward, their roots shifting like snakes beneath the ground. The fog thickened again, pulsing like breath. Daddy! Lily cried, clutching his hand. Shh, following us. He didn't look back. He could hear it, the wet scrape of claws on dirt, the crackle of breaking branches. The air vibrated with whispers. Then a voice carried on the wind. Payment due. Something hot ripped through Daniel's shoulder. Claws or teeth he didn't know. He fell, Lily tumbling with him. The flashlight went spinning, beams slicing across the trees. For a split second, he saw dozens of figures in the fog. Not shadows, people. Old faces, young faces, all pale and sunken, their eyes black holes. The lost ones. His brother was among them. "Nate," he shouted, "help me." Nate's shape hesitated, the faintest flicker of something human left in him. Then he stepped forward. The others followed. And the dog, the real one, not carved, backed away, growling as if afraid of them. The dead closed in. "Run, Dad," Lily screamed. But Daniel couldn't. He was bleeding, dizzy. The last thing he saw before the world went black was Nate's hand reaching toward him, skeletal, trembling, and the faint whisper, "Not this time." When he awoke, the sun was rising. He was lying at the edge of the woods, his clothes torn, his shoulder burning. Lily was beside him, asleep but breathing. The fog was gone, the air was still. He looked toward the trees. The carvings, the black wooden dogs were gone, all except one, the smallest, burned at the edges. Lying on the ground near his hand, he turned it over. New letters had been carved beneath the date, paid. He staggered home with Lily in his arms. The town looked unchanged, calm, quiet, ordinary. But every house seemed to have one new thing in common: a small wooden dog sitting on the porch, watching, waiting. The cellar door wasn't supposed to move, not after Daniel nailed it shut, not after he'd heard the scraping, not after he'd whispered his father's name into the black. But the nails were bending outward now, one by one, as if the wood was breathing. He took a step back. The air felt damp, heavy, smelled like wet leaves and rot. Behind him, the house whispered. That sound again, like laughter run backward.
And then the door opened.
And then the door opened. It didn't burst. It just sighed open, quietly, as if something inside had been waiting for permission. A figure stood in the dark, not solid, not vapor, something in between. Its outline was Daniel's height, its posture almost human, except for the head, too long, too narrow, stretched like melting wax. Danny, it said. Not his voice, his father's. He stumbled back, choking on a cry. "Dad."
The shadow stepped forward. It shimmered, its skin a ripple of memory. Faces flashed through it. His mother's, a child's, strangers.
The shadow stepped forward. It shimmered, its skin a ripple of memory. Faces flashed through it. His mother's, a child's, strangers. All flickering beneath the surface like things trapped under ice. "You shouldn't have come back," it said. Daniel's breath came ragged. "You're not him." The thing tilted its head. "Then why do you look so much like me?" The light bulb above the stairs began to hum. Daniel glanced up and saw shapes forming in the glow. Not dust, not insects. Faces, dozens of them. People his father had known, maybe even loved. Each one mouthing the same word: help. He turned and bolted up the stairs. Behind him, something followed. Not footsteps, more like the sound of dragging skin. When he reached the kitchen, the back door slammed shut on its own. Every window turned black, like the night outside had swallowed the glass. Daniel grabbed the flashlight off the counter and shone it toward the cellar door. Nothing. Then a whisper. "They wear us. Daniel." He froze. What? The hollow. It wears us. Like masks. He found the old journal the next morning, hidden beneath a floorboard in his father's study. It smelled like ash and old rain. The first entry was dated October 31st, 1979. I made the deal tonight to save the boy. The hollow said it needed something equal, a vessel, a mask. I didn't understand what it meant until I saw the faces. They weren't people anymore. Daniel turned the page. If I don't feed it, it takes. If I don't remember, it reminds another page. The masks change every year. They walk the woods. They whisper through the leaves. They wait for Halloween night, when the barrier softens, when the hollow wears a new face. The final line was written in red ink, trembling. If you see your own face in the woods, run. By sunset, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about the woods. He'd grown up playing there before his father forbade it. Now, looking through the cracked kitchen window, he could almost see movement between the trees, shapes standing too still. The whispering had started again at dusk, soft at first, then clearer. Come home. He took the flashlight, the journal, and his father's old shotgun. The path into the forest was slick with rot and leaves. The deeper he went, the more wrong the air felt, thick and humming, like he'd stepped inside a living thing. At the edge of the clearing, he stopped. There were figures.
Dozens of them.
Dozens of them, standing in a circle around the old oak. First he thought they were mannequins, but then one turned its head and he saw its face was stretched over something else. Too tight, like skin on wet clay. Each one wore a human face that didn't fit. His flashlight flickered and every face turned toward him. Danny, they whispered. Join us. He did. In the center of the circle stood a taller shape. It wore his father's face. Why? Daniel shouted. Why me?
His father's face smiled.
His father's face smiled. Because the hollow doesn't die, Danny. It just changes masks. Your turn. He fired the shotgun. The sound cracked the woods open. The figure stumbled, then straightened again, the hole closing like wet paper. The others began to move, slowly at first, then faster. He ran. Branches clawed his skin. Voices chased him. Some were his own, some weren't. When he reached the house, the front door was gone. Just wall. Smooth, seamless. He screamed and turned. The shapes were coming up the hill. Dozens of them, faces slipping like melting wax. He turned to the window. His reflection was waiting there. It smiled. Let me in. By morning, the neighbors saw lights on in the old Granger house again. The boy was gone, they said. The windows were clean. And on Halloween night, a man stood at the edge of the woods handing out candy to passing children.
He looked like Daniel Granger. He sounded like Daniel Granger.
He looked like Daniel Granger. He sounded like Daniel Granger. But when one of the children asked why his eyes looked so strange, he only smiled and said, "Because I'm still getting used to the face." And in the reflection of his window, another face smiled back, waiting. The man who looked like Daniel Granger smiled as the last child skipped down the street, candy bags swinging, laughter echoing through the cold Halloween night. He closed the door slowly, almost tenderly.
The porch light flickered once, then went out.
The porch light flickered once, then went out.
Inside the house side.
Inside the house side. In the living room mirror, his reflection didn't move at first. Then it blinked 1 second late and smiled wider than he did. Still getting used to it, the thing said softly. But it fits better every hour. The reflection leaned forward, pressing its palms against the glass. From deep within the house, something knocked back. 3 days later, in Miss Connor's 4th grade class, little Emily Reeves started talking to the wall. "Who are you whispering to?" Miss Connor asked, trying to keep her voice patient. Emily turned her small, pale face toward the teacher. "She says her name's Ims, just like mine." Miss Connor frowned. "Your imaginary friend again?" Emily shook her head, pigtails swaying.
Not imaginary.
"Not imaginary. She's in the window." The class laughed. Miss Connor didn't. The old windows of Eldridge Elementary had always been strange, warped glass that seemed to shimmer, reflecting shapes even when nothing stood before them. When she glanced toward the window, Miss Connor froze. The sunlight shimmered across the glass, and for a second, she saw 2 Emilys, one sitting at her desk, and one standing inside the reflection, smiling too wide. By the following week, the town of Eldridge had begun to change. Small things at first, the kind that make people blame the weather or stress or the dull ache of October settling in.
Mirrors cracking without cause.
Mirrors cracking without cause. Dogs refusing to go near their owners' reflections. Children waking up at night whispering the same words. "It's wearing my face." Sheriff Martin tried to keep calm, even after the 5th call about talking glass. But when his own bathroom mirror began fogging over with words, "Do you remember the woods?" he stopped shaving altogether. On the 7th night after Halloween, a storm rolled in. The power flickered across Eldridge, and in every darkened window, the Hollow watched back. Inside the Granger house, Daniel was changing. He stood in front of the cracked bathroom mirror, fingers twitching against his face. The skin felt loose. He peeled back a corner just a little. Beneath it was darkness, a shifting wet black that pulsed like a heartbeat.
The mirror whispered, "Not yet. The town's not ready."
The mirror whispered, "Not yet. The town's not ready." He leaned closer. "Then what do you want from me?" "You'll know when they start coming home." "Who?" "The children." 2 blocks away? Marianne Reeve woke to the sound of her daughter giggling in the dark. "The bedside clock read 2:13 a.m., Emily," she called. No answer. She got up, heart hammering, and followed the sound into the hallway. The giggling came from the mirror at the end, an antique oval she'd inherited from her grandmother. Emily stood before it, whispering. Marianne froze when she saw what was wrong. There were 2 girls in the glass, both Emily, one smiling, one still.
The smiling one lifted her hand first.
The smiling one lifted her hand first. Marianne's breath caught. "Sweetheart, come away from there." Emily turned. "She says she can come out now." Before Marianne could move, the glass rippled like water. Something stepped through.
When the neighbors found Marianne the next morning, she was sitting on the floor, holding something that looked like her daughter, but wasn't quite right.
When the neighbors found Marianne the next morning, she was sitting on the floor, holding something that looked like her daughter, but wasn't quite right. The eyes were too black, the smile too long. The real Emily Reeve was nowhere to be found. Sheriff Martin came by, pale as milk. "Another missing kid," he muttered to his deputy. "That's 3 this week." The deputy nodded. "You seen the Granger house lately?"
Lights on all night.
"Lights on all night?" Man standing in the window. "Looks like Daniel."
The sheriff swallowed hard. Daniel's been dead since '99.
The sheriff swallowed hard. Daniel's been dead since '99. That night, they gathered the children of Eldridge.
From every corner of town, they walked barefoot into the woods. Some giggled, some cried softly.
From every corner of town, they walked barefoot into the woods. Some giggled, some cried softly. They carried their masks, not plastic, not paper.
Real faces.
Real faces, worn like costumes. In the clearing stood the Granger house, or what was left of it. The walls seemed to melt into the trees. The windows pulsed like open eyes. And at the center, Daniel waited. He raised his hands.
"You've all done well," he said, voice echoing like wind through bones. "Tonight, the hollow feasts."
"You've all done well," he said, voice echoing like wind through bones. "Tonight, the hollow feasts." The children turned their faces upward as the forest began to breathe. Trunks bending, branches stretching, roots twisting. In the shadows between the trees, shapes stirred, tall, thin, faceless. Sheriff Martin drove toward Miller Road with sirens blaring, but the sound died halfway there. The radio hissed. "Dispatch. Static." He glanced in the rear view and saw someone sitting in the back seat. It was him. Older. Paler. The other Martin smiled. "You're too late, Jim. The masks are already chosen." The sheriff slammed on the brakes, but the car didn't stop. The world outside blurred, melted, became wood and darkness.
When the cruiser finally stopped, he was standing in the clearing.
When the cruiser finally stopped, he was standing in the clearing. The children turned. Each one wore a different face. Daniel Granger stepped forward, holding something that looked like a sheriff's badge made of skin. The ground split open. A sound rose, not a scream, but something worse. Laughter layered over crying, whispering through the soil. Faces pushed up from the dirt, old and new, whispering the same phrase, where me, Daniel, or what wore him spread its arms. From the sky above, the moon turned black.
For a moment, everything was silent.
For a moment, everything was silent. Then, one by one, the children began to vanish. Not gone, exactly, just folded into the shadows. When the light returned, only their masks remained. Dozens of pale faces lying in the grass, smiling up at the night.
By dawn, Eldridge was quiet again.
By dawn, Eldridge was quiet again. The woods stood still. The houses calm. But in every mirror, the town's reflection lingered one beat too long. At the Reeve house, the new Emily sat at breakfast, humming softly. "Everything okay, honey?" her mother asked. The girl smiled a little too wide. "Yes, Mommy." Her reflection smiled back and whispered, "For now." The girl at the kitchen table, the thing wearing Emily Riva's face, finished her cereal, set down the spoon, and whispered again to her reflection. "For now," she said. The reflection smiled wider, but this time the words came back out loud. "Not for long." 60 miles north in a shabby roadside diner just off Route 17. 3 people sat in silence over untouched coffee. They didn't know one another's names, not yet. But they all carried the same nightmares. Marjorie Keller, 73, the last living resident of Old Eldridge, before the town was relocated in 1981. Tom Grady, the sheriff's nephew, who'd found his uncle's cruiser abandoned near Miller Hill last week.
And Claire Holloway, granddaughter of Reverend Holloway, the man who'd baptized Daniel Price.
And Claire Holloway, granddaughter of Reverend Holloway, the man who'd baptized Daniel Price, and the one who'd vanished after whispering that the Hollow remembers. The waitress kept glancing at them like they were ghosts, Maybe they were. Finally, Claire spoke. Her voice was low, cracked by sleeplessness. Starting again. Marjorie didn't look up. Child, it never stopped. The hollow just waits till we forget. Tom rubbed his face. Forget what exactly?
Marjorie reached into her worn satchel and pulled out an old leather-bound journal.
The pages were yellowed, edges singed. The words on the cover were hand-carved, not written. The First Feast, 1873. Claire opened the book with careful fingers. The handwriting was small, neat, but frantic near the end. The first page read, October 28, 1873, the children are missing again. The woods hum at night. The elders say it's the hollow's hunger. October 31st, we tried the ritual. The preacher said sacrifice would seal it. He lied. We only fed it. November 2, it wore my brother's face. He smiled at me through the window. November 3, I burned the church.
I thought that would stop it.
I thought that would stop it. But fire can't kill a shadow. At the bottom of the final page was a single name, written in blood-brown ink. Abigail Price. Tom looked up. Price like Daniel Price? Marjorie nodded slowly. Same bloodline. His great-great-grandmother. That's where it started. Outside, thunder rolled. Claire flipped to the back of the journal, a section glued shut with something black and brittle. She hesitated. Then she pried it open. The smell hit them first. Rot and ash. Inside was a folded scrap of parchment, drawn with symbols none of them could read. In the center, a crude sketch, a dog, its eyes hollow pits. Beneath it, a line in Latin. Non moriamur facium induimus. Tom frowned. What's that mean? Claire swallowed. Roughly, to keep from dying, we wear the face. Marjorie crossed herself. That's their bargain. They don't live. They just keep borrowing. The diner lights flickered once, twice, then the power went out. From the dark came a faint sound. Tap, tap, tap. Not on the window, on the glass of the jukebox. Claire stood, heart hammering. Lightning flashed outside, and for a second they saw it. A child's face pressed against the diner window, smiling upside down. Tom grabbed his flashlight, ran to the door, but there was no one there. Only wet footprints, small bare, leading into the woods across the road. Marjorie's voice shook. They found us. Hours later, they reached the edge of Hunter's Hollow, or what was left of it. The forest looked burned and new all at once. Blackened trunks sprouting fresh leaves, ground cracked like old bone. Claire clutched the journal. If what Abigail wrote is true, the ritual site is near the church ruins. They found it, a circle of stones half buried in moss. In the center, a charred cross, and beneath it, a pit that breathed. It exhaled like something sleeping deep below. Marjorie stepped forward. This is where it first came through. The preacher opened it to save his dying boy. The hollow gave him back, but wrong. Tom looked around. Then how do we close it? Claire knelt, flipping through the journal. Her voice trembled as she read. To break the promise, one must return the borrowed face. She looked up. We have to find the originals, the real ones it took. They weren't alone for long. From the trees came figures, pale, slow, dragging their feet. At first, Tom thought they were the missing kids. Then he saw their eyes, hollow sockets, black and wet like tunnels. They moved like puppets with invisible strings. And behind them, Daniel Granger walked, head tilted, smile thin as paper. Nice of you to remember, he said softly. Claire raised the journal like a weapon. We know what you are. Daniel's grin widened. Do you? I'm what your grandfather made, Claire. What they all made when they asked the Hollow to spare them from death. He looked at Marjorie. You were there, weren't you? 1981? You remember the fire? Her voice broke. You promised you'd take me last, Danny. He stepped closer, eyes glowing faintly red. And I will, but not yet. The ground trembled. From the pit came the sound of weeping, hundreds of voices whispering together. Claire opened the journal to the final page. There, scrawled in newer ink, were words that hadn't been there before. The face you wear must be freely given back. She looked at Daniel, then take mine. Before Tom could stop her, she stepped forward and pressed her palms against his chest. The Hollow's air twisted, a whirl of black smoke, faces flickering through it like fish in dark water. Daniel screamed, not in pain, but rage. You don't understand what it costs. Claire smiled faintly. Neither did you. Light burst from her hands. The forest shrieked. And then everything went still. When Tom woke, it was dawn. The trees were ash gray. The pit was gone. So were the faces. Marjorie sat beside him, holding the burned remains of the journal. What happened? He whispered. She looked out toward the horizon. She gave it back. He frowned. Claire. Marjorie shook her head. The Hollow always takes one who remembers. It's the only way it sleeps. They drove back toward Eldridge in silence. As they passed the diner, Tom saw something in the window, just for a moment. Claire's reflection, smiling, back in the Reeve house. Emily brushed her teeth in front of the mirror. The lights flickered once. Her reflection leaned forward, whispering something only the glass could hear. Then, for the first time, her reflection didn't move. It just watched. And on the far edge of the mirror, faint, almost gone, a woman's face appeared behind her. Claire Holloway. She smiled sadly and whispered one word before fading back into the dark. Remember? Tom Grady didn't sleep for 3 nights after the Hollow burned. When he closed his eyes, he saw faces, too many faces bleeding together like melted wax. He'd wake gasping, sure that he could still smell smoke. But it wasn't smoke. It was something sweeter, almost metallic, like burnt sugar and iron. The smell of something pretending to be human.
On the 4th night, as dawn crept through the curtains, he went to the bathroom sink to splash water on his face.
That's when he noticed it. His reflection blinked a fraction too late. He froze, stared. The man in the mirror stared back, same eyes, same scruff, same little scar on the chin from that fight senior year. He leaned closer. The reflection leaned closer. But when he exhaled, his reflection didn't. Tom's breath fogged the glass. The man inside didn't fog anything. He just smiled and whispered, warning. The toothbrush slipped from Tom's hand. It hit the sink with a clatter. When he looked back, the reflection was normal again, except the fog on the mirror spelled 3 words. We remember you, by noon. Tom was back at the old sheriff's station. Now, nothing more than a ghost of its former self. Boarded windows, dust thick enough to write names in. Marjorie Keller sat inside, wrapped in a shawl, rocking slowly in the same chair she'd refused to leave for days. She didn't greet him. She just stared at the old wall map. Eldridge Miller Road, the Hollow drawn in faint pencil like a scar that never healed. You shouldn't have come back, she said. Tom sighed. I can't stay away. Every night I hear her, Claire. He nodded. Marjorie's eyes glistened. And it's already inside you. He bristled. What are you talking about? She reached into her bag. pulling out a tiny wooden figure, a dog blackened and cracked, same as the ones Daniel Price had found. "I dug this up near the edge of the woods last night," she whispered. "The carvings are back. The hollow's trying to rebuild itself." Tom ran a hand through his hair. "We burned it." Marjorie shook her head. "We burned the trees, not the memory." That night, he stayed in the station. He told himself it was for protection, though it felt more like penance. Sometime after midnight, he heard it again, a faint scratching, coming from beneath the floorboards. He followed the noise with a flashlight, past the holding cells, and into the records room. Dust swirled around his beam like ash. The sound grew louder. Scritch, scritch, scritch. He knelt and pried up a floor tile. Beneath it was something wrapped in plastic, an old reel-to-reel tape, labeled in faded ink. Confession, 1979. His uncle's handwriting. Tom swallowed hard and threaded it into the player. A hiss, a click, and a man's voice, weary, trembling. "If anyone hears this, the hollow doesn't take lives. It takes time. Every memory, every face you forget, that's how it grows. We thought we could starve it, but the only way to kill a memory is to remember it." Then a pause, a long, shuddering breath. And if you see your reflection smile first, it's already too late. The tape ended with a soft laugh, or maybe a growl.
Tom didn't notice the mirror at first.
Tom didn't notice the mirror at first. There wasn't supposed to be one in the records room, but now, one hung crooked on the wall. Its frame the color of old bone. Saw himself inside it. Flashlight trembling in his hand, jaw tight, eyes tired. Then the reflection blinked again, out of sync. And this time, it stepped forward. Out. Glass cracked like thin ice. Tom stumbled back as the air grew colder, his breath turning white. The reflection has double tilted its head just like the black dog had. It smiled. "Tom," it said, voice wet, thick, wrong. "We never burned, you know. You just lit the match in the wrong place." Tom fumbled for his gun. His hands shook. "What are you?" He grinned wider. "It's a part of you that remembers what shouldn't be remembered." The reflection reached up, fingers slicing through its own face like clay, revealing another face beneath a woman's face. Claire Holloway. Her eyes were black pits. "Help me," she whispered. Tom fired. The mirror exploded. Silence. Then faintly, from somewhere deep below the station, came the sound of laughter. Children's laughter.
"You're..."
The next morning, Tom drove to what used to be Eldridge, except it wasn't there anymore. The road ended in fog, the kind that swallows sound. The old church spire was gone. Even the cemetery stones had sunk beneath the earth. He pulled over, heart pounding, and stepped out into the mist. For a moment, he thought he saw shapes moving, outlines of houses, mailboxes, faces behind windows. The memory of a town, then a voice soft as wind. "Tom."
He turned.
He turned. Claire stood at the edge of the fog, barefoot, wearing the same torn coat from the night she vanished. Her smile was faint, human. "I told you it never ends," she said. He took a step closer. "What is this place?" "This is what's left when people forget," she said. "Every lie, every memory buried, the hollow keeps them safe until someone remembers." Tom's throat tightened. "And if I do?"
Her smile flickered. "Then it wears your face."
Her smile flickered. "Then it wears your face." He woke back in his truck, engine cold, windshield covered in frost. Written across the glass in finger-drawn letters, "Welcome back." By the time he reached town, things had changed. Every window he passed reflected not him, but someone else. His reflection lagged, twitched, stared too long. In the hardware store window, he saw himself grinning. In the diner door, he saw Marjorie's dead eyes. In the gas pump glass, he saw Claire mouthing something. He leaned closer. Remember the word repeated everywhere on TV screens? Rear view mirrors, shop front glass, thousands of mouths whispering it in perfect unison. The hollow had spread. It wasn't in the woods anymore. It was in the world.
Desperate, Tom returned to the burned-out church. The earth still smoked faintly.
Desperate, Tom returned to the burned-out church. The earth still smoked faintly. He dug where the altar had been, his hands bleeding against stone and ash. At last, he uncovered a wooden box, old, scorched, carved with that same Latin phrase, ut non moriamur faciam induamus.
Inside were photographs.
Inside were photographs.
Dozens, maybe hundreds.
Dozens, maybe hundreds. Every one showed a face, some smiling, some screaming, some blurred like motion caught mid-exhale. At the bottom, a single picture of his uncle, younger, terrified, standing before the black pit. On the back scrawled in shaky handwriting,
"We made a deal to remember forever."
"We made a deal to remember forever, but forever remembers us back." That night, the mirror called to him again. It wasn't whispering now. It was humming low, steady, almost like a heartbeat. Tom stood before it, exhausted. "What do you want?" The reflection smiled. Not his, not Claire's, not Daniel's. Something older. Something that had worn every face before. "You," it said simply. "To look long enough to forget which side you're on." He raised the gun. His reflection raised a knife. He fired once.
The glass shattered, and something stepped through.
The glass shattered, and something stepped through. The world inverted, cold, heavy, endless. He wasn't looking at the mirror anymore. He was inside it. The other him smiled from the outside, picked up the gun, walked away, leaving Tom trapped in the glass, pounding silently, screaming into his own reflection as the world carried on. The new sheriff of Eldridge, a young woman named Jenna Clark, moved into the old station after renovations. They found no records, no tapes, nothing but a single mirror nailed to the basement wall. She almost had it removed, but something about it felt familiar, comforting even. Sometimes when she was tired, she swore she saw someone behind her in it. A man's face. Older, tired. He mouthed something she couldn't quite hear. One night she leaned close, squinting. Then the glass fogged, and she could read his breath.
"Remember me."
Remember me. Halloween came again. The air turned cold. The fog rolled down from the woods like a living thing, somewhere far beneath Eldridge. Deep where the dirt remembers every name ever whispered to it, something ancient opened its eyes. It didn't hunger for souls or flesh anymore. It hungered for memory, because memory is every price, every Holloway, every Reeve learned, is the one thing that never dies. The hollow smiled in the dark, and somewhere inside the glass, a man named Tom Grady screamed without sound. The town slept through Halloween that year. No kids in masks, no porch lights, just a long, uneasy silence that hung over Hunter's Hollow like fog that never burned off. The Price house stood empty again. Reverend Holloway's funeral drew 12 people at most, and most of them never looked toward the tree line. They said the woods were different now, quieter, but no one believed it. Quiet didn't mean safe. Quiet just meant waiting. 2 weeks later, a for sale sign went up in the yard. The real estate agent lasted 10 minutes inside before walking out pale as bone, said the house felt wrong. She didn't come back. By December, snow covered the path leading into the forest. The paw prints were gone, at least the human ones. One afternoon, a boy named Michael Hargrove, 7, curious. The kind of kid who believed adventure hid in every shadow, was sledding near the ridge when his sled tipped, and he rolled halfway down the old Price property hill. When he stood up, brushing snow from his coat, he saw something dark jutting out from the white. A small wooden dog. Its edges were blackened, its eyes carved deep and sharp. On the base, scratched in uneven letters, were 2 words. For now. That night, Michael dreamed of a man in a raincoat standing in the fog, holding a little girl's hand. They were both smiling, but the shadows behind them weren't still. When he awoke, the sound of scratching echoed faintly through his bedroom wall, slow, patient, like something remembering. Stories like this don't end. Not really. They just go quiet for a while. I grew up about 30 miles from a place a lot like Hunter's Hollow. One of those towns you don't find on the map, until you're already lost. My father used to drive through there on his way to the mill, and every time we passed those black trees, he'd say the same thing. Don't look too long, Danny boy. The woods look back. When I wrote The Devil at Hunter's Hollow, I thought I was making that up, the idea that the dark can remember you, that it keeps your scent long after you've left. But now I'm not so sure, because every town has its hollow. Every family has something buried in the roots, a deal, a debt, a promise carved in wood. Maybe that's what the Prices were. A story about what happens when you make peace with your ghosts instead of burying them. Or maybe it's simpler. Maybe the devil really did come walking one Halloween night in 1979, and he's been walking ever since. There's a rule in the hollow, though, one that didn't make it into the story. I only learned it later, from a man who swore he used to hunt in those woods before they were fenced off. He said, if you ever hear it breathing behind you, don't run. Running's what makes it real. I laughed when he said it. But sometimes late at night I'll hear scratching in the walls, soft, almost polite, and I'll tell myself it's just mice, or the pipes, or wind through old boards. I'll tell myself that, and then very quietly I'll whisper into the dark, for now.